And now we have to talk about what, for me, is going to be one of the most thrilling and wonderful and fun parts of the season, which is the lyric opera premiere of Rusalka by Dvořák. Everyone knows the song To the Moon, and of course, well, Renée, actually my first Rusalka was with Renée in New York at the Met. We just did 3 performances at the end of one season, I remember.
Yes.
But it's a piece that was always done in Czechoslovakia, and sometimes in Germany, I think, probably in German most of the time, but somehow it managed not to get into the mainstream repertoire everywhere. It is now, I believe, finally, because the music is absolutely glorious. I mean, it's a great role. The orchestral writing is, as you'd expect with Dvořák, exceptionally beautiful. And you know, the rather nice thing about Dvořák, above all else, wanted it to be remembered as an opera composer. Well, in that case, he shouldn't have written all those wonderful symphonies and concertos and chamber music and stuff. But that was his burning ambition. That was what he wanted his legacy to be, and he wrote about 8 of them. But Rusalka, which is the last one, is really absolutely great, and I'm so happy that we're bringing it finally.
It's a great and glorious piece, and how thrilling for us to be giving the Chicago premiere of Rusalka, because it may well be that a lot of our audiences will never have seen it before, and for us to be able to introduce this masterpiece to our audiences is unbelievably exciting.
It was my debut in opera, really, singing this role. It put me on the map after I won the Met competition with Ben Heppner and Susan Graham, and Susie and Ben and I then went to Seattle and did the piece, and I sang a version of that production, I think 7 times now. And I've sung this role more than any other role in my repertoire. People love the piece. You know, everybody knows the opera from obviously The Little Mermaid, even the Disney film, and the many, many treatments of the Undine legend and story. And except that I always say, except it's opera, so everyone dies. Sorry, but it's so sympathetic, and the end is quite complex.
Right.
Yes, it took me a long time to understand what was really happening. Why is she drawing him to his death? How did she end up in this position? It's quite more mythic in a way than certainly the Disney treatment.
That's right.
I love operas based on fairy stories because the story is captivating, but under an apparently simple story are dark, swirling mists. That the romantic music of Dvořák really explores, a little bit like Humperdinck's Hansel and Gretel.
Yes, that's right. Yes. And the end of Rusalka is incredibly moving. There's a passage for the orchestra that's almost Mahlerian.
Right.
You know, all the strings playing in unison with the brass.
The
and
final
timpani,
duet.
And this kind of threnody sort of music that's always gives me shivers.
I love it too.
I can't wait.
And the brand new production, it's the same production team as created our new Elektra at the start of last season. The director, Sir David McVicker, set designer, John McFarlane. And they really will find a way of exploring the darkness of this late 19th century world. Certainly it will be a fairy story world, but a fairy tale world in which the intrusion of human beings and industry is polluting this idyllic utopian world of nature. It'll be very, very striking.
Well, I love David's work, well, both of them, and I think the Elektra was one of the most fantastic things we've done in a while, and they really have this way to penetrate through to the essence of a piece, and I think so I'm looking forward to this enormously.
I'm also just thrilled that this repertoire, all of the Czech repertoire, has now become standard in the world, both in the US and in Europe. Between the Anna Czech operas and this, Sir Charles Mackerras is very much responsible for that, and you probably worked with him at some point. And Yvette Graf to some degree, who tirelessly advocated for these pieces. And when I was starting out, it was Gabriela Benachkova, who had sung a few of them at the Met. And but now the piece is done all the time. I mean, I think the aria is so standard now that all young singers, sopranos, want to learn it at some point. And the other fascinating thing, I think, is that when I started out, it wasn't the norm to sing in Czech or Russian
Right,
or
of
any of
course.
these or in any Slavic language, any Scandinavian language. And now young American singers are not afraid of language at all. They'll sing in any language.
Yes.
So it's
And
wonderful.
we have a fantastic cast.
Yes.
Recreating their very famous partnership at Glyndebourne. Ana Maria Martinez and Brandon Jovanovich as Rusalka and the Prince will be just
A winning combination,
fantastic.
yes.
Absolutely. Eric Owens
Yes.
returning to lyric as the water sprite.
And Jill Grove playing a witch yet again.
Yet again, poor Jill. And a very exciting young Russian mezzo-soprano, Ekaterina Gubanova, making her lyric debut as the foreign princess.
Sort of villainess of the piece,
Yes.
nasty piece of work.
Yes. Or Rusalka's alter ego, depending on the production. This production can take so much fantasy, really, because
Yes.
the story is a little bit difficult sometimes, enigmatic, I would say. I'm excited to see what they do.
Yes, and great stuff for the chorus too. Actually, in the second act, especially, there's the big sort of party scene, which is a great showpiece for the chorus and the orchestra.
Yeah.
Yes.
The orchestra's going to love it.
But as we said earlier, wonderful to be introducing this masterpiece to our audiences for the first
Yeah.
time.